Hey there, guys, how are you? It seems ages, doesn't it? We only missed one Holy Shed, but it seems so much longer. And absence makes the heart and all that. So it's great to have you back here with me again in the Holy Shed. You're very welcome, whether you're here for the first time or you've been here from the get go. It is just lovely to have you. And I hope you've been enjoying yourself, having fun over Christmas. My favourite bit, because I'm a bit weird like this, was having the opportunity to preach at midnight mass. It's always a very special thing to do when you've got a packed church with many people who never normally enter the place. And I'm very, very grateful to our dear friend and rector Anna for giving me the opportunity to do that. Anyway, here we are once again at the crossroads. Another year over, a new one just begun. Of course, there's nothing magical or especially significant about January the 1st. It's just another date in the calendar. And yet we all know that in many ways it's more than that, not least because uh, our lives exist within a bounded span of time. And there are markers that remind us of this, the more so the further on we go in life. And here we are at New Year once again. And I wonder how you're feeling about that, how you're feeling about the future, about 2024. Excited, I hope. But I'm guessing if you're anything like me, also a bit anxious because, the world's in a right old pickle just now. You may recall the quote which I've given several times, I think, over the past year in the Holy Shed by the British philosopher Stephen Toulmin, who said, "We have a choice between two attitudes toward the future. It's a choice," he said, "between nostalgia and imagination. It's a choice between facing the future and backing into it." And I can't help feeling that so many of our leaders in the world of politics, I mean, goodness knows, even more so probably in the world of religion, but so many of our political leaders are basically backing into the future, nostalgically hanging on to a world that's just no longer viable. I mean, attitudes toward climate change are the prime example of this political nostalgia. Because, hardly anyone in the world of politics, not just here in our country, but round the world, hardly any political leaders seem remotely inclined to face the reality of what is happening with anything like the appropriate level of urgency. I mean, do any of these people watch David Attenborough? They really should. Basically, the world is going to pot on an express train. And it's far too late to go haggling over dates 2030, 2035, whatever. It's far too late to hang on to fossil fuels and see who can do it for the longest without finally trashing the planet. It's now, guys, it's now or maybe never. Who the heck is bothering about the future of our kids and our grandkids? Much, not to mention the species which are disappearing by the truckload around the world, never to return. For God's sake, leaders, lead, would you? In his book, Cosmopolis, from which I quoted earlier, Stephen Toulmin spoke in the late 1990s about what he called futurables, available futures. And the trouble is that since he wrote that, the futurables have already narrowed down considerably where the planet is concerned. And not just in that realm of the planet. I mean, in all kinds of ways, geopolitics seems hell-bent on closing down possibilities rather than opening them up. But there are still many better futures available should we choose to take them. So here's the thing. Do you remember all the process theology stuff that we've been talking about through the autumn in the Holy Shed? How the universe is relational right down to its boots. Everything is connected to everything else. And everything is in a state of becoming, in a state of process. Well, the big cheese in the world of process thought was a philosopher called Alfred North Whitehead, whose work, though he passed away in 1947, his work is still massively relevant to our times. And Whitehead made this, I think, rather wonderful observation, which I'd like to share with you. He says, I wish I could convey this sense I have of the infinity of possibilities that confront humanity, the limitless variations of choice, the possibilities of novel and untried combinations, the happy turns of experiment, the endless horizons opening out. As long as we experiment, as long as we keep this possibility of progressiveness, we and our societies are alive. It is the living principle in thought which keeps us alive. I love that quote. And I believe it. Even though certain futurables or available futures are disappearing, the future remains open. There are still lots of good choices, better choices to be made in the future, in our own personal lives and in the geopolitical world as well. I mean, look, there are other ways to defeat Hamas than pulverizing innocent Palestinians, killing thousands of children and adults and making their lives a bloody misery. There are other ways to go about this. There are other ways to solve the refugee crisis than demonizing people for wanting, as we all would, to escape war and poverty and the effects of climate change. There are other and better ways to live than polluting oceans, destroying rainforests, and continuing wholesale to burn fossil fuels. There are other ways to solve conflicts than resorting to armed conflict. There just are. There just are other ways, better ways for us to live than the way we seem hell-bent on living at the moment. But they require imagination. They require, in some instances, a lot of negotiation. They certainly require the courage to just face the fact that the ways we have gone about things are no longer viable. Whitehead said we need progressiveness. Progressiveness in our attitudes and policies in all fields of life. And while we keep on progressing and evolving, he said, we're keeping ourselves alive. We're keeping the dream alive if we can just keep on progressing and evolving. But how about, all of this in terms of our own lives? How about this for us, the little ones who feel powerless in the face of geopolitical struggles? I mean, what can we do? Well, look, there are things that we can't control, and there are things that we can. Things that we can't change to any great extent, and things that we can change. And having the wisdom to just sit down and recognize the the difference in those things is crucial. And taking Whitehead's logic, changing even small things which are under our control, is a way of being progressive and brings the sense of being alive instead of merely surviving. So it's not just how much will what we do and the changes we make affect the world out there. They will. But also, how much will it change who we are as people if we just make the right choices, better choices? Me, I want to live in 2024, not just survive the year. So I need to take control of the controllables in my life and not waste precious energy worrying about what I can't control. Okay? During the final few weeks before Christmas, I talked a lot also about prayer. You remember that? Because I'm launching my book of prayers, OMG, a Bad Christian's Prayer Book, in March of this year. And without wishing to sound stupidly Christian, I think prayer is something that we can do. Moving into the new year, we can pray. But I don't mean say prayers. I'm not just going back into that old kind of treadmill of things. No. There's a guy called Franz Kafka. Do you know Kafka? One of the major figures in 20th century literature. And he likened prayer to art. He said the two things have got a great deal of similarity between them. They're both passionate acts of will, he said. And what's more, they can reach beyond the will's normal possibilities. So let me give you a quote by him, which I find very interesting and helpful. He says, "Art, like prayer, is a hand outstretched into the darkness, seeking for some touch of grace which will transform it into a hand that bestows gifts. Prayer means casting oneself into the miraculous rainbow that stretches between becoming and dying, to be utterly consumed in it, in order to bring its infinite radiance to bed in the frail little cradle of one's own existence." That's an amazing quote. It's worth thinking about quite a bit. I mean, I just want to write a great big OMG over it. From Kafka's and process theology's point of view, prayer is a shift. It's a shift of consciousness. It's a state of being open. Prayer, you could say, is openness. Openness to God, yes, but also openness to the future. When we pray, when we find that state of heart and mind, it's about opening ourselves up to possibility, opening ourselves to new possibility. And it's more than that. It's more than just openness. I mean, if you think about what Kafka said, he said prayer is a hand outstretched into the darkness. Prayer is a state of being which is refusing nostalgia for the security of the past. It's refusing to back into the future. Prayer is about daring to look into the future, into the darkness, which may feel threatening, and reaching ourselves out into that. Prayer is facing the darkness of the unknown and reaching into it. And what is this state of prayer reaching for as it reaches out into the darkness? It's seeking, he said, some touch of grace. It's believing that God is out there in the darkness as well as here with us where we are now. And so prayer is reaching our hand out, looking for some touch of grace which will transform our outstretched hand into a hand that can bestow gifts, that can bring something to the table. Oh my God. Prayer reaches into the darkness, seeking to have something that we can give into the chasm of the unknown. In other words, prayer is about putting ourselves into a place where we can help to shape the future in some way, give something into it, rather than just sit back and, apathetically sort of crying out to God to do something, as if we had nothing to do with all of this. Prayer is a state of heart and mind, willing to shape the future insofar as we can, and hopefully much more than we think we can. Now, there's a cliche, you'll have heard it, prayer changes things. We used to have it in a little plaque on our wall in my childhood home. But, that statement, prayer changes things, isn't saying prayers change things. It isn't about cobbling words together or reading them from a prayer book. It isn't going through the rigmarole of prayer. That doesn't change things. It's something else, which Kafka put, and I'll put his quote back up again for you. He said it's casting oneself into the miraculous rainbow that stretches between becoming and dying, to be utterly consumed in it in order to bring its infinite radiance to bed in the frail little cradle of one's own existence. The miraculous rainbow is life. Prayer means hurling oneself headlong, fully committed into the very center of life. That's what prayer is, not sitting in a corner saying words, though that may be part of it. Prayer means hurling oneself headlong, fully committed into the very centre of life. Now, of course, we may use words to pray sometimes. I'm writing a book of them. But prayer isn't words. Prayer is a state of consciousness. It's a state of commitment of mind and spirit to living passionately in the world, to giving life our best shot, if you like, to be open to the future because we're helping to create the future at whatever level it is that we can. And sometimes we don't know how much we're changing it. We just have to do it anyway, trusting that our little fourpenneth, if you like, the passion that we can bring to bear, like a butterfly flapping its wings, will have consequences out there, whether or not we ever see them. But I love Kafka's point that prayer isn't simply my will against the world. It's not me kicking against the world. It's me reaching out for some touch of grace that can transform these feeble efforts into a hand that is able to give, that's able to contribute. Prayer is me bringing to God my feebleness and opening up to the possibility that my feebleness will make a difference. So there's my New Year meditation about the future. I hope that you'll be able to go away and give some thought to these things. It is so tempting when we're faced with massive forces of things happening to just pull out of the fray altogether, to just feel I've got nothing I can do. And that's the road to despair. But I believe that this understanding of prayer as finding a new state of consciousness, which is about openness to the future, is a way of, redeeming ourselves in our relationship to the future. Because we're not just silly little things sitting at the side of the road. We are agents of divinity that can bring something to bear on the world. So it's about grace. And here is a prayer that I wrote about grace. It changes everything. Oh God, my entire life is grace. I came with empty hands, and when I leave, my hands will be empty. Everything is grace, is gift, is undeserved, yet gratefully received, sometimes. In my stronger moments, I think I can take on the world, could mould it to my liking. Sometimes that works. But the best bits are pure grace. When I perceive, as if for the first time, how dependent I am on friends, on people I do not know, on a world that offers itself to me, yet requires so little in return. Grace. Unconditional acceptance, unmerited favour, wasteful love, finding beauty everywhere, the only name I truly know you by. Grace. Well then, I think we should have a little toast. It's an appropriate time of year. I've got some Coke. You may have something else. Whatever you've got to hand, I ask you to pick up a drink now. And let's toast. Toast to a new year, to 2024. Toast an end of hell for the people of Gaza. Toast an end to terrorism and all kinds of hatred. Toast to an end to the war in Ukraine and all wars. A toast to peace. To all you need is love. To you, dear friends, wherever you are, whatever's going on in your life and your loved ones, to life, l'chaim. There we are then, hey? If you like the Holy Shed, you like what I'm doing here, you can support us. You can buy us a coffee. You just need to follow the link, which is there on your screen now. And thank you for all those of you who've supported us like this and in lots of other ways through the last year, through the last 3 years nearly now. And we appreciate that so much. Now, I mentioned about the prayer book I'm writing, getting together, which will be launched at a retreat that I'm leading at Amadown Conference Centre or Retreat Centre in Somerset. It's a wonderful place. I loved being there. And wouldn't it be great to, if you can do it, to invest in your own future as you go into 2024 by joining me? It's part of Lent, and so it's an appropriate time to sit back and think about prayer and what it can mean to us in our lives. And there'll be a chance, with a little bit of help from me, for you to write some prayers of your own. So there you go. You just need to follow the link that's there on your screen, and you'll find out all the information you need to know. So I'm going to finish with another quote that I spotted on social media yesterday, which I like. Someone painted on a wall. The planet doesn't need more successful people. The planet desperately needs more peacemakers, healers, restorers, storytellers, and lovers of all kinds. Amen to that. So I'm going to finish with a blessing by the wonderful John O'Donoghue. It's a blessing for new beginnings, and it seems an appropriate thing. So thanks for being with me here today in the Holy Shed. Have a great week. Be kind to yourselves, huh? That's important. And be kind to people around you. Be kind to the world. Stay human, and we'll meet again very soon. See you guys.
Beginnings are often dangerous. They leave us unsure. There's a certain risk being taken. We don't know how things will work out. And yet at certain times, unless we make a beginning, we remain marooned in a dead place for so long, squandering our souls. So this is a blessing for a new beginning. In out-of-the-way places of the heart, where your thoughts never think to wander, this beginning has been quietly forming, waiting until you were ready to emerge. For a long time it has watched your desire, feeling the emptiness growing inside you, noticing how you willed yourself on, still unable to leave what you had outgrown. It watched you play with the seduction of safety and the grey promises that sameness whispered, heard the waves of turmoil rise and relent, wondered would you always live like this. Then the delight when your courage kindled and out you stepped onto new ground, your eyes young again with energy and dream, a path of plenitude opening before you. Though your destination is not yet clear, you can trust the promise of this opening. Unfurl yourself into the grace of beginning that is at one with your life's desire. Awaken your spirit to adventure, hold nothing back. Learn to find ease in risk. Soon you will be home in a new rhythm, for your soul senses the world that awaits you.